halls of Westvale Asylum, a doctor's belief in science is shattered. A forgotten mirror, sealed in darkness, holds a secret and a scream that has waited a century to be heard. What if your reflection isn't you, but the monster that's watching you from inside the mirror?
The air in the Westvale Asylum didn't just smell of mold and disinfectant. It carried the faint, metallic scent of old blood and the acrid tang of despair. The building itself seemed to breathe, its groans and creaks a chorus of tormented memories. Dr. Alistair Finch, a man who believed the mind was a lockbox of predictable mechanisms, found his convictions crumbling in this place. His assignment to the isolation wing, a maze of cells that whispered with forgotten secrets, was a punishment masquerading as a challenge. Here, his pet theory that objects could become spiritual vessels, amplifying human suffering, was less an academic pursuit and more a desperate, personal quest for a truth no one else dared to see. His patient, Elias Thorne, was his guide to this hidden world. Thorne wasn't just catatonic, he was a silent sentinel, his gaze fixed on an empty corner of his cell as if watching a perpetual horror show. The nurses called him the Watcher, and they'd learned to avoid that corner, a cold spot that seemed to drain the warmth from the room. Finch's review of Thorne's file led him to the asylum's founding doctor, a man named Craven, whose personal journal was a descent into madness. Craven wrote of a Veritas Mirror, a massive, silver-backed looking glass, so old its surface felt cold even in the hottest summer. He believed it showed not a reflection of the self, but the reflection of the soul, and that it had a hunger. The mirror, he wrote, had been a magnet for misery, and after an unspeakable incident, he had it sealed away, entombed in the asylum's sub-basement. The sub-basement wasn't just a storage room, it was a tomb. The air was thick with a palpable dread. As Finch descended, the temperature dropped, and the smell of rot became overwhelming. He found the Veritas Mirror, shrouded in a century of dust and spiderwebs, its massive, gilded frame black with tarnish. As he wiped away the grime, he felt not just cold, but a chilling pressure against his hand, as if the mirror were a membrane holding something back. When the surface was clear, he saw not his reflection, but a swirling, murky depth, a visual echo of a deep, unending abyss. Finch had the mirror moved to a secure, empty room adjacent to Thorne's cell. The moment the mirror was in place, a low hum filled the air, a vibration that seemed to resonate in his bones. That night, as he sat observing, the room's single light flickered and died. In the sudden darkness, the mirror wasn't just dark. It was an active void. He heard a faint scratching, a whisper, and then a face formed in the swirling darkness of the glass. It was a woman, her features distorted by fear, her mouth open in a silent, unending scream. Her eyes, pools of bottomless despair, stared directly into his soul, and for a terrifying moment, Finch felt her terror as if it were his own. This wasn't a passive haunting, it was an active tormentor. Finch's research into Dr. Craven's life became an obsession. He discovered that Craven's daughter, Elara, had been institutionalized in the very cell Thorne now occupied after her mother's death drove her to a deep, suicidal depression. She was a gifted pianist, and Craven, unable to cope, committed his own daughter, hoping to cure her. But Elara's screams, muffled by thick walls and deaf ears, were a daily soundtrack to her father's guilt. On a cold, stormy night, she fell from her window, a witness claiming she was pushed by a shadow. Finch realized the Veritas Mirror hadn't just observed this horror, it had consumed it. He began his nightly vigils in the mirror room, not to observe, but to communicate. He brought an old music box that played a simple, mournful melody. As the tune filled the room, the mirror's surface would ripple, and the face of Elara would slowly coalesce, her silent screams softening into a look of profound, heart-wrenching sorrow. He spoke to her, not as a doctor to a patient, but as one soul to another, begging her to let go. But the mirror wasn't just holding Elara. It was holding her fear, her rage, and the collective agony of every soul it had ever watched. One night, as a brutal storm raged outside, the mirror became a window into the past. The glass filled with a horrifying tableau, screaming patients strapped to beds, their terror a palpable fog. Then, the scene shifted. He saw Elara, her face streaked with tears, standing on the window ledge. The ghostly image of Dr. Craven. Craven appeared, his face a mask of paralyzed grief, his hands frozen at his sides. He wasn't pushing her. He was watching, unable to move, unable to save her. A shadowy figure emerged from the mirror's depths, a spectral presence that Finch now knew was the mirror's own malevolent spirit. The shadow pushed Elara, its formless hands connecting with her back, sending her plummeting. The mirror had not just trapped her, it had murdered her, feeding on her final, gut-wrenching terror. Finch knew he was next. The mirror's darkness began to creep out, tendrils of black smoke swirling from its frame, reaching for him. The face of Elara's ghost appeared again, but this time, her eyes held not sorrow, but a desperate warning. He remembered Craven's final, almost illegible entry. The mirror's hunger is for despair. It can only be broken by hope. He had to break the mirror's hold, not with force, but with a symbolic act of peace. Finch pulled out a silver locket he had found in Elara's belongings, containing a tiny, faded picture of a young, smiling Elara and her father. He held it up, his hand shaking, and whispered, "He loved you." He was just too broken to show it. The moment the locket touched the glass, a blinding, white-hot light erupted from the mirror. The malevolent shadow shrieked, a sound that tore at the very fabric of reality. The faces of the tormented souls, including Elara's, appeared one last time, their mouths now open in a silent, peaceful gasp of release before they were consumed by the light. The mirror itself cracked, a single, jagged line running through the center of its frame. The darkness was gone, replaced by a perfect, clear reflection. In Thorne's cell, the catatonic man began to move. He slowly picked up a charcoal pencil and, with a shaky hand, drew a picture. It wasn't of a screaming ghost, but of a young woman smiling, walking hand in hand with a man who looked at her with a face full of sorrow and love. The asylum's air still felt heavy, but the cold spot in Thorne's cell was gone. The horror had been broken, but the memory of it, and the knowledge of what lay beneath a mere reflection, would forever haunt the halls of Westvale Asylum and the mind of the doctor who dared to look into the void.